Let's continue talking about children, adolescents, and young people. And now going back into them acquiring knowledge and how they get their knowledge. Libraries are a big thing. In all schools, there's always, a collection of books somewhere. It's either in the class, at the back of a classroom, or in some institutions, they have a proper, fully fledged, well-stocked library, and it's written library at the door, and you can enter, and all the rules of the library are observed. Be quiet, there's a place to sit, study, borrow a book, return it to the shelf, and all this and the other. Or if you went to primary school like I did, you had books somewhere, and that was called library in its whatever form. In some cases, it's actually a library is in the staff room, or in some of those cases, the library is in the headmaster or headmistress's office. Now, there's an organization that has been working at improving this situation and making sure that schools across the country have proper functioning libraries with more books stocked there, and children are then able to access this to increase their knowledge. This organization is called Knowledge Empowering Youth Key. And the head librarian is our next guest, Nyakundi James Nyambane. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
The hot seat of the Situation Room. You look like, just a very nice person, like a librarian. Approachable.
And there are people who don't look nice.
No, you don't look like you can be a librarian.
Wow.
Oh, not too strict. That's why they gave you the job of headmaster.
Hey, wow.
Look at him. Look at him. Look at the way he's smiling. He encourages you to take a book.
When I don't smile.
The way you smile. Nyambane, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Let's see Mwalimu Siti. Welcome with the day's proverb from his book of Proverbs.
Yes, our Proverbs for this week have been from the country of Burkina Faso. This is our last day. Okay? Every birth is a rebirth of an ancestor.
Every birth is a rebirth of an ancestor. Nyambane, do you understand this proverb? What's your interpretation of it?
Every birth is a rebirth of an ancestor.
Yes.
So I'll interpret it as every new situation. Let's say every new situation that happens, probably it's a reoccurrence of something that has happened before. So it probably could not be really, really new, but it could be something that has already existed before. So, yeah, that's how I could interpret that.
There is a book in the Bible where the person we're told is the writer said, there is nothing new under the sun.
Correct.
If you see it happening, it has happened before.
It's happened before.
Yeah, you just weren't there, but it has happened before.
Correct.
So those who perhaps lived longer will be able to tell you, it happened here, it happened. But then you don't need to have lived long. Now we have something called history, which is actually written. Now we have history that beyond writing is actually archived somewhere. So you can just refer to it and you will know what happened before. So, yes, spot on.
So it's all about that. It's looking at a situation and knowing that this situation may not necessarily be new. It could be new to you.
Yes.
But it's been there before.
It's not new. In fact, there are those who are even bold enough to say that when something happens to mankind, there's nothing new. It doesn't matter what you say, it isn't new. It may present itself differently and in a different time, but the essence of it, exactly the same.
Same. It's been there before.
Yes.
So Nyambane,
Yeah.
as a librarian, first of all, who's a librarian?
A librarian is a trained information professional that handles information that is there to help people access information. So being a librarian is a role that you take to help people access information. That's the sole role of a librarian. You're there to provide information to people and manage information correctly. So you evaluate information that is available and see that it's meeting our users' needs.
Okay.
Different users have different needs.
Okay.
So the work of a librarian is to meet the users' needs.
In the context of a school
Correct.
or a library, what's a librarian?
In the context of a school, a librarian is a person who manages day-to-day operations of a library, oversees the collection that is available within that library, does shelving, manages teachers, manages the community that uses the library, and tries to bring together different stakeholders that support that particular library. So day-to-day activities could range from shelving, providing training to users, talking to different people, stakeholders, talking to the administration, talking to people who parents and teachers and even staff, because library within schools is meant to be used by all people, not just students. It can be used by staff, it can be used by teachers, and it's there to support teaching and learning of that particular institution. Yeah.
Are they also in charge of looking and making sure that whatever is in the library is appropriate for the intended users of the information there?
Yeah. The role of a librarian actually is also to evaluate the content, understand your content, know what you have, know your users as well, so that whatever you have, you can be able to recommend to particular users to be able to use specific content. So you need to know and understand your collection as a good librarian, that this is what I have in my collection, and this particular information will fit to this particular either age group or particular class or a particular group of users. Yeah.
You know, I've always found books fascinating from the time I was a child. But the thing I've never understood, even now that I'm a grown-up, is how exactly are librarians trained? What are you trained in? Because I'm a teacher, I was trained how to teach. So, as a librarian...
Library science or something like
Yes. What is it? Just walk us through. I mean, fundamentally, in a statement or two.
Information sciences.
Yes, we're trained to do this and this and this and this and this and this.
Correct. That's a common question that we normally get as librarians. People ask us, do you go to university for 4 years to study being a librarian?
Not study, count books.
Count books.
And shelve them.
And shelve them.
Many people actually assume that librarians, their role is just to pick books from the shelf and take them back to the tables, back to the shelves, and back again. Yeah. But the role of a librarian, actually, the training that we get in a library ranges actually from studying the user behavior. User behavior is a course that we take to analyze who wants what at what particular time. When it's nearing exam, different people have different needs. If it's nearing exam, students want particularly revision papers, for example. So you need to understand what is the user behavior currently, and then how can we meet this user behavior. Secondly, there are areas that we get trained on, classifying and cataloging. That's technical processing of books. So we need to classify these different universe of knowledge into specific facets so that it can be easily retrieved. We have thousands and thousands of books within libraries that are huge. So you need to have those particular skills that can help you catalog, classify, and analyze these resources and know that these particular resources are supposed to be kept in particular areas. We also do management of libraries. That is, how can we manage the libraries? What do we need to have a functional library? And also in other areas, what we train on is community engagement. How do we bring other people into supporting our libraries here and there? It's quite huge area, and it's actually...
I was waiting for you to tell us how you get people interested in utilizing the resources in a library. Yes, because... if the library exists and the view people have of it is narrow and limited, then they will not take advantage of it, neither will they benefit from what the library actually entails or represents. So at some point, and I'm now borrowing heavily from the commercial sector, they get people to be interested in what they have because they tell you about it repeatedly until whether you have a choice or not, you will know. Whether you take it up is a different matter, but you will know. Is there somewhere along the line where people get to know about libraries, where they exist, what they can do for you? Because within libraries, there's knowledge. And the acquisition of knowledge is what moves the world. So it's difficult to get anything more important than that. So are you trained in one way or the other to get people to understand and know the benefits of this particular field that you work in?
Yes, we are trained in marketing of information products, different information products that are available in a library, and services that we have. We do the training that we package the products that we have to the communities out there. You might not really have heard so much about these advocacy programs that are being run by different institutions, but the programs are there. And if you visit some of these libraries, you can be able to meet people marketing information products, telling you that we have this program in our library. We welcome you to participate in this particular event. We welcome your support. Come talk to us. Come talk to our kids. Come inspire this generation. And those products and services do get marketed by librarians.
I see. Now introduce us to your organization, the Key Knowledge Empowering Youth. What is it and what do you do?
Knowledge Empowering Youth is registered trust that supports school libraries. We have different school libraries in different parts of the country, and a school in Tanzania and Ghana. So what we do is we realize that school libraries in most cases neglected, and where they exist, it's not just a school library, it's just a corner that you mentioned there with so many books and under lock and key. And you see, when books and other information resources are under lock and key, that means there's no usage. So Key, what it does is we renovate school libraries where they do not exist, and they have a school. If a school has a structure, we do the renovation of that. That's a model that we've adopted. 2, we've done new builds of new school libraries. And thirdly, our model adopts container libraries that are really done nicely for users to use them as libraries.
How many libraries then do you have?
We have 46 libraries, and the libraries are across different counties, in 12 counties in Kenya, and we have one in Ghana and one in Tanzania as well.
What are the basics of a functional library?
The basics of a functional library is one, a library that has usage. A library that people or kids or the users can go and sit, access information.
So they need to be able to sit.
They need to be able to sit.
That means
and
desks and chairs.
Desks and chairs, and access information. Although it's an idea that is being challenged by different people, because you don't really have to go and sit. You can be able to access a library virtually. But a functional library, you have to have a space where people can come, sit, and have discussions. Secondly, a functional library is a library that has incorporated technology. With digital revolution in this era, libraries are going way far in adopting technology issues. Without technology now, we might not be able to serve the current generation. Thirdly, a library, a functional library is a library that talks about its program to the community, to the teachers and their users within a school. So those are some of the basic library functions of actually aspects of our functional library.
Who should determine what kind of resources are in a library? Because we think of different things. There are books that you read for leisure. There are books that you read for information and research. There's referencing material across board. Who determines? Is it the school that determines then? Because usually they're in an academic institution at whatever level. So who decides? The school, or is there collaboration between library resources and the school? How does this exactly work?
Okay. In terms of resources, it's always good to consider who will be the users, because it's the users that determine the type of information resources that you can acquire in a library. So When you're doing collection development as a librarian, you incorporate the users because they'll be the consumers of information that you're bringing. Involve the teachers, involve parents and community where it's a community if it's a community library. So they determine, actually, it's not a one factor, but at least not one person who can say that these are the resources. It's always good to consider the users and also your professional opinion as a librarian as well. And even the school administration, because different schools also have different policies on different aspects. So those are some of the factors that you will consider.
So what are the basics then that should be? That if you say that you have a proper functioning library at any academic institution, what are the basics that you must then be able to walk into? Whether your library is a 4-story building or it is one room with shelves of books, what are the basics that you ought to have?
The basics that you ought to have in every library, one, we want to look at the resources. A good library should have current information resources. We need to have a qualified professional managing the library. That's a librarian. And now that's also another factor that you need to consider. Without a professional librarian, someone who can be able to tell what resources are available and what content is available in those resources, then you are missing that factor. Thirdly, you need to find spaces that are conducive for the learners, spaces that are well managed, well arranged, so that they can meet the users' needs, because different people have different needs. If users are not comfortable in the spaces that are provided, probably they not be able to use those spaces. Yeah.
So when you have such kind of a library, let's say it's a school library, okay? Books are coming from various sources. There will be well-wishers who come and say, you know what, I have some books and I'd like to donate. There will be, of course, the Ministry of Education itself, which has sent some books, which then you determine, let these ones sit in the library so all students can have access to these books, textbooks. Others will be donating encyclopedias and all. At what point then do you categorize them and determine that this one's, especially age appropriateness in terms of the content that's available there? How do you, is it only your decision? Or do you also involve other people in determining this book, our grade 3s can read this book?
It is through collaboration with the teachers. You can always consult the teachers who use those books or those who teach those specific classes. Again, you can make those decisions depending on your previous experience. If you've had such particular books come and they've been used by a particular grade, and then you can be able to recommend these particular books, it will be fit for this particular grade. Again, for a librarian, you need to understand the curriculum that you're operating in, because different institutions have different systems. There's 844, there's the international curriculum. So you will be able to evaluate every resource or gift that you receive.
Yeah.
Evaluate them, see if they are relevant, if they support the school vision and mission, then that's when you can be able to add them to your collection. Yeah.
But you know, there's something that has been said in this country. Oh, Kenyans have lost the reading culture. Kenyans don't read. Kenyans are reading books. From your experience in the schools that you've visited, the schools that you've supported in equipping and revamping their libraries, is this true?
That's not true. Kenyans read. But the reading culture, the aspect of reading is not in many Kenyans. But the few that have adopted the reading culture, they do read, yes.
So it's very few.
There are few actually who have really adopted. But now that's what we are doing as a key. We're trying to introduce early reading programs for kids, so that when a child learns how to read while they are still young, they'll be able to adopt the lifelong reading culture. So even if they finish high school or they finish their primary school to high school, then they've already adopted this habit of reading. You know, when you introduce to book at an older age, you know, it's really hard to adopt some of these.
How to teach an old trick to new dogs.
Exactly.
Or the other way around.
Yeah.
So there's a challenge that you have encountered as you go to the communities in terms of, well, the children for various reasons. It could be, and you'll tell us what the reasons are. It could be, because they're books and the books are under lock and key, so they don't have access to reading them and all those things. Children have not had that basic culture of just wanting to read unless they're referring to the textbook because they've been told to do exercise 1 to 10 on page 55, right? How do you encourage them to actually now start reading? Can't just be yet because now books are available, the children are automatically going to start reading.
Lack of interest in reading comes from different reasons. Probably the content that is available in that particular library could not be relevant to the kids. And you realize that if the content is not relevant, and then kids will not be interested, or nobody will be interested to read. So that's why we really maintain on having a relevant content in any particular library. And another aspect that we can look at is as librarians reaching out to these particular students or communities that we serve. We provide these trainings that you come to the library, you say, these are particular resources I want, and then we can be able to take you through. This is how you can be able to access our catalogs. This is how you can be able to access our e-resources. This is how you can be able to access the digital content that we have in the libraries. So we conduct those trainings as librarians so that people who didn't know how to access particular information can be able to access that particular information.
How about because I still think, because what Eric talks about library being under lock and key, are libraries and library resourcing individuals or communities not in a position to remove this thing that being in the library or reading is a privilege or a luxury as opposed to something that should be part of everyday learning? And I think with that, what you do is then you remove all of this thing like, okay, you're going to read a book once a week. You get to come to the library once a week as a class. No.
It's library day.
It's library day. It's today is reading day. I think that's one of the things that ought to be removed. And I think it should be encouraged from those who understand what a powerful resource reading is, because there's so many things that it allows you to then be able to do. Children have been known to be able to spell significantly better because they're reading regularly. Children learn subject material better than a person who is teaching them because they've been able to read. But we make it seem like it's a field trip. Today we get to go to the library. I mean, couldn't that be something that could be encouraged from library resourcing to schools for them to understand? Because teachers are teaching what they know, and they also know this culture of, well, okay, we get to read on a particular day. How can that be debunked?
Let's say, using Key as an example, what we do is we're trying to make these spaces more attractive. We're trying to equip these libraries with resources that are really interesting, child-friendly, picture book, graphic novels, those resources that are for early readers. And we provide also games and toys for those young kids to come and use within the library. See, these are some of the items that really interest kids. In some of the libraries, actually, kids even prefer to come to schools even on Sunday when the library is closed because they want to come and use the library. Apart from playing the games and toys and actually using the picture books and the spaces that we provide, we have computers that we give these libraries, and there are computer activities that they can do in these libraries. So in the computers, when they are using these computers, they are doing these activities with the computers. They are developing their interest in different aspects, actually. They're developing their interest in coding. They're developing their interest in computers and even programming, basic programming. So there are different aspects depending on how the library is structured. Then that actually determines the interest that the users are going to have in that particular library.
Let's take a break at 28 minutes to 9. Our guest this morning is Nyakundi James Nyambane. He's a head librarian at an organization called Knowledge Empowering Youth that has been working at resourcing and helping to equip libraries across the country, currently working in some 12 counties. They've done some 46 libraries and helping, schools just get libraries that are functional and working and supporting them. A comment here from Barak Muluka. He understands things about books, having been a publisher himself and very many other things, an editor. Libraries have elitist and frightful ambience. They need demystifying, and librarians do a little to help. They must promote libraries through mobile services and reading tents. Are there people who are hired by the Teacher Service Commission as librarians, who have studied and qualified as librarians, hired and then posted to schools to work as that?
There's a conversation about that, but as it is now, the Teacher Service Commission has not hired librarians to any of the public schools that I know.
So who mans libraries?
Libraries are managed by librarians, but they are not posted by Teachers Service Commission. There's libraries that I know are normally they are managed by librarians, but then the librarians are employed by the boards in different parts of the country. They are not hired by the Teacher Service Commission.
Nyambane, I know schools where the person who is manning the library is a dorm matron.
Yeah.
As in, it's since you don't have anything else to do, come and just
matron, the librarian,
my librarian, and then caterers. I mean, it sounds like something that just lumped with other things to do,
support
because
services.
Exactly,
and
the importance of it is not,
and then it's supported by students.
Yeah. And then you're also told, well, while you're at it, you have books at home. Donate to the school library. I mean, this is the reality.
Yeah. That's the reality. True.
Yeah.
You're saying the truth. There are instances where school libraries are managed by matrons and different people actually assigned by the school. But there are also instances where the schools are trying to allocate the English teachers to manage the libraries. Probably they are not really trained librarians, but when they come to these libraries, those who show interest, they get trained so that they can know basics of managing libraries. The challenge that happens is you realize that these teachers sometimes, they are still teaching and their workload is still high in the classes that they're managing. So you realize that the time that they'll offer to manage these libraries is very minimal. That ends up the library being closed because
the teacher is in class.
The teacher is in class. They are chasing their content. They want to finish the syllabus. So it's true. There is a challenge in the school libraries. And management, there are no policies actually that are specifically how school libraries should be managed by the ministry. That ends up giving the head teachers an opportunity to choose who to put in these libraries.
Is there anything in the Basic Education Act or in anything that talks about our education, our curriculum, the KICD Act or anything that actually mentions libraries in schools? Are libraries recognized by the Ministry of Education as part and parcel of learning?
Yes, they are recognized, but again, previously they have been given a very little mention on the role that they do play in teaching, in supporting teaching and learning. And now the commission that was doing education review, the CBC review, we submitted our proposal on the need to have functional school libraries, and we hope that on the proposal that we did, they'll be able to adopt that and ensure that libraries have functional, they have resources, they have people who are trained managing these libraries. But as it is, there are not really clear guidelines on who should manage these libraries and how they should be managed, particularly in who to manage them and what resources they're supposed to be there and how to.
So it starts from the top, basically, as I'm hearing this. Even in the phase out of 844, with 844 itself, there was no proper place for library in the education. Now, even as we transition to CBC, we are still talking about libraries as, by the way, we can talk about everything else. We talk about workshops, have a functioning workshop, have functioning labs. We do not talk about functioning library. It's not there at all. What do we need to see at that level, at policy level, so that libraries are then getting the proper recognition that they ought to get?
Key, actually, Knowledge Empowering Youth has did a proposal to develop a school library policy, and it's actually the first in the country that was ever developed, and it's being currently adopted by the Ministry of Education to try to manage. But then it's not really, it has not been, it's not an act, so there's not much about it in terms of implementations. But there is progress, what I can say, because now we've given proposals, and currently there is a bill that is likely to be discussed in Parliament to discuss about how libraries should be adopted in every school. Like every school have a librarian, and then the person managing that particular library be a qualified person that has been accredited to be a librarian. Yeah.
Who accredits librarians?
Currently, because there are no policies, there are no particular policies that we can say that is the body that accredits. But then there is the Kenya Library Association that is working on that as well.
So the Kenya Library Association is an association of people who are trained as librarians.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
But then there are people who are trained as librarians. And the Kenya National Qualification Authority recognizes certification for librarians. But there is no licensing for librarians.
Currently, no.
Okay.
We currently do not have a licensing body for librarians.
So, because what we're saying is that here is a classification that actually is fundamental to literacy levels in the country. Because we're saying that if you read, you learn. We're saying that literacy is not just about reading and writing, but it's also comprehension, right? And then one of the fundamental elements in being able to get students at whatever level, by the way, we're not just talking about children, we're even talking about the university level, right? Because then you're talking about referencing material and things like that. Maybe your established universities will have proper libraries with proper classification and referencing and things like that. But essentially we are saying that this element, which is fundamental to the literacy achievement of students in the country, is not even licensed, number one. Number two, it's lumped up with everything else. We're not really even sure about how it goes about. Books in schools, there's no referencing material. Every year, new books are sent to schools. We don't even know if they keep the old ones for referencing or they're put at some run-of-the-mill shop. And then we are surprised later on when we get reports about literacy levels in the country having, gone to the dogs. Shouldn't 1 + 1 equal the other?
There is a challenge in actually what we can say currently there is a challenge, but again there is hope because different organizations now have come together and the bill is now in the process. It's almost heading to validation process so that the proposal that different professionals have made, they can be adopted. So soon, once this bill becomes an act, then now from there, different agencies will be able to come together and see how best they can structure different aspects in this that are not really clear in terms of the accreditation, certification, and even the professional development points for professional development activities. So these are some of the things that are really in the process currently. Yeah.
Currently, there is a Kenya National Library Service, right?
Yeah.
This is a state corporation,
Correct.
established under law. A law that was written in 1965.
Oh, voila.
This state corporation is under which ministry?
State corporation is under the Ministry of, it used to be under the Ministry of Sports and Culture and Heritage.
Right.
Yeah.
It's now under the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife,
Wildlife.
and Culture.
Nice.
Okay.
Why didn't they just put it under industrialization?
They need it.
So see the thinking.
You see the same way it's given to the matron.
The Kenya National
Same
Library
class.
Services is under culture, the State Department for Culture and Heritage. Okay? So it's not an education function,
It's not an everyday thing.
even in the thinking of government at the national level. It's not an education function, it's a culture and heritage function. It's a place where we shall be
Go and
putting
visit.
things. Yeah, like the things we say, if you want to hide something, put it in the library. That's a place you go and discover culture, heritage,
history.
Kenya National Library Services. Tells you the thinking. This thing should be under.
Eric, it's actually far worse than that because every time one talks of a library, one talks of books. One is essentially referring to exams.
Yes.
The whole idea of reading for the pleasure of it, for the pleasure of interacting, not acquiring necessarily, just even interacting with knowledge for the sake of knowledge. It isn't emphasized. Now, if you want to see where it actually manifests itself in the worst possible way, it's in our universities. We had Professor Yossi here, okay?
Yes.
what is evident from the discussion we're having with him is how research is fundamental in the institutions of higher learning in places he has worked. Research.
Yeah.
In this country, it doesn't take second, third, fourth. It probably takes 10th place. People read to pass exams and then their life goes on. Research is this research thing that a few people bother
Or term
with.
paper, maybe.
Or even when you come to research organizations, there they take research a little seriously. But the ethos of research would be best manifested if the people who work in those institutions are awash with the grants, meaning they are always writing and there's always research. You see activity, but not as much as you'd like to. Now, if you look at countries where learning is taken seriously and is manifested at the level of research that is there, you'll find universities are maintained by those very things. Some of the best known universities, the things that stand out is the grants that they can attract and the institutes within the university that are built with these grants. You know why? Learning is given the proper place.
Yep.
Here, it isn't. So if it isn't, a library will be disregarded and discarded. It's one of those things that, it's good to have it there. It's like somebody in their house having a shelf full of books and you ask them, how many of these books have you read? And they look at you. The books are part of the furniture.
Yeah.
Now, the question I want to ask.
Yes.
Here you're talking about a library and we're actually talking about the written word in books. How does that compete with the world of the internet? Where some learning takes place. In fact, I would argue a lot of learning takes place. How does it compete? Or how does it contribute? Or how does it work in tandem with it?
They complement actually one another because yes, the world of internet has changed the way people view and access information, and the current generation actually prefers some online content, and because they can easily do it from their phones, they can access it from their phone, they can access it from their laptops. But again, we really can't do away with the print books, because again, we always keep referring to print that is available. And this is not something that we can say that is likely to take over books fully, because there is internet, because we have different challenges again using the internet things. There is no access to internet in all places. Again, the internet that is available is really slow in some places. Again, devices that we use, some of them are not really up to speed, so you might really take long time searching for information online, and comparing to if you are in the library and you got the correct books, and then it will be easier for you to refer when you have them physically. So I think they are working hand in hand. They're not really leaving one another. Yes.
Are you able to tell us the impact of having a functioning library is, from your own experience, from this project that you've worked on? Okay, take us to a school. Show us the before and after.
Okay. Let's say we've gone to a school before the library. You realize that kids don't know how basic numeracy, basic literacy levels are really down. And now when you have the library, you realize that now kids develop these basic numeracy and basic literacy levels. And even computer literacy actually rises with the availability of a library. The kids are able to communicate, developing collaboration skills in these spaces that we provide, comparing when there were no any library before. So you realize that there is a gradual development of users within these libraries. When a student is not exposed to a library at a younger age, and then maybe they're exposed to a later age, it becomes really difficult for them to adopt some of these tricks. But when they really adopt it from the younger age, you realize that even their computer skills really go higher, and even their interest in specific aspects, because they've been exposed to reading. Been exposed to different books, even career books that we give them. So they're able to learn and know that if I take this particular career, I'll be able to excel later on in life. Some of them actually, they have adopted, let's say, some there are competitions that they participate in. These are computer-based competitions. We have robotics competitions that some of them are participating in, like Librarian Sheila. So these are some of the skills that help these kids learn basic skills, basic literacy skills.
Tell us about
at
that particular one. That library in Sheila. Where is it and what are
Where
they
is
doing?
Sheila?
Sheila is in Lamu County.
It's an island.
It's an island, yes. It's an island within Lamu County. Sheila, Sheila has a population of not so many people. It's a small island. We have a library. We have 2 libraries actually in Sheila. One is Sheila Primary School, and the other one is Bright Girls. And Bright Girls Secondary School is just near Sheila.
It's within the island.
It's within the island, the island, yeah. So there is a project there. There is a robotics program that we started there as key, and then it has picked really well. The kids are really enjoying now the library because they go there to learn basic coding and how they're putting together those robotics, those pieces of robotics pieces and stuff. The library also provides a platform for them to be trained on computer activities because they are computers. They are learning the projecting using the smart boards that is available in the library, their books, and other resources. There are games and toys as well within the library. So through the games and toys they play, they are learning to collaborate, they're learning to communicate with one another.
Is there electricity in Sheila?
Yes, there is electricity in Sheila. The Manda part is the one that doesn't have electricity. But
Where do they get the electricity from?
in Sheila,
You said it's an island.
it is an island.
Yes, so there's water between them and the mainland.
Yes.
Just asking. Look, it could be
Stima
solar.
yaletwa na boti bana kila asubuhi.
But there is actually electricity.
They're connected to the grid.
Yes. Actually, it's KPLC, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a power station in Sheila.
There is. Actually, we left there last week and we got some Kenya Power people connecting some lines in Manda now. So probably it's also heading to Manda.
Okay.
Yes.
They can pull power
Along
under
under the sea.
and take it there as well. Nyambane, how do you measure impact? Like before we went to this community, these were the literacy levels, maybe based on the performance, the mean score in this particular school. And after we've been there for X number of years, we've seen that change. How do you measure that? How are you able to tell that, our libraries are actually having an impact?
We do continuous monitoring and evaluation exercises that we go and evaluate. Before we set up the project, we evaluate the current state of the area and the users. And then now we keep on doing every annual monitoring and evaluation exercises, and then we do reports, and then now we can be able to assess and compare before there was this library, and then after there has been these developments here and there. Again, we also get feedbacks, continuous feedbacks from the teacher librarians, the school administration, and even the community leadership, because when we are setting those libraries, we do work with community leaderships as well. Yeah, so we are able to tell that there has been an impact from the stories that we get and from the feedback that we receive from these particular institutions.
So to anybody who's listening now to this conversation, we've heard everything. It's important to have a library. Okay. It's important to have a trained person who is managing the library for various reasons. It's important to support your local community to have a library. It's important to have a national policy on libraries. All those things. What is the one strong message that you'd like to send with regards to having functional libraries at community level, at the local school?
One message I could say is let's support school libraries. Let's go back to the schools that we were. Let's see what we can do to support the libraries that are there, because you realize that some of the challenges that these libraries are facing are not really huge challenges. Some of them are minor challenges that me and you can be able to solve at particular institutions. So we go back again and see what can we do in these schools. If every one person I think goes back to their school, try to see what can we do in terms of supporting libraries. You will have gone a long way in improving the lives and reading skills of that particular population. Yeah.
Okay. There's a comment coming in from Elizabeth. Elizabeth says, Elizabeth Nyakiago, head of libraries at Precious Blood Ruta. We've really benefited from Key. They have donated books, laptops, smart boards, projector, tables, seats, etc. Our library is managed by the girls. Each class has 2 librarians. It's usually open by 7 a.m. and closed at 9 p.m. What does that mean, that the library is managed by girls and each has 2 librarians? So it's like a library prefect.
So Key has developed a concept whereby we want to involve the students that we serve. So there is the idea of having a library council in every institution, because if you're serving these people without involving them, they are likely to be to back off and feel like the library is just there. So for the case of Precious Blood, the library is managed by students, and they're managing it really well. They're able to open it on time, close it on time, and also gather data that helps us to assess and see the usage of the library. So, yeah.
So what happens when they're in class? They've opened the library at 7 a.m. Mm-hmm. Of course, they're going to class. They're students.
So they have a schedule on how and what time someone should be there. Okay. And they're actually from different classes. So every class has a representative, as Elizabeth has said. So there is no any given time that there is a gap, actually. It's open throughout the day. Even during breaks here and there, they are able to plan themselves well. And you realize that it's actually able to serve them.
Okay.
And actually they understand each other better, so it's easier for them to even borrow books. There's no that long processes, because it's your fellow colleague serving you, it's your fellow student serving you, so it's easier between one another.
Thank you very much, Nyambane. Librarians do, as an association, do you ever meet to discuss what it is that we need to do? Tuongezewe mshahara. Your Excellency, sasa uko hapa tupewe ka allowance. Do you do that?
Yes, through the Kenya Library Association, it normally provides training for different librarians. And now for us as Key, we are planning to have a school librarians workshop. And that will be happening actually next week here in Nairobi at Ibis Hotel. So we're planning to bring together all the teacher librarians that we work with, and the librarians, and even those who are in charge of all different libraries that we work with. So they'll be coming to Nairobi for a training next week. We're trying to expose them and learn from one another. We share experiences from one another on what are the best practices out there that we can adopt to run and manage these libraries that we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
All the best with that.
Thank you.
Nyakundi James Nyambane is the head librarian at Knowledge Empowering Youth. Keep it here for more.